Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Heartbeat Narratives. My name is Molly, and I am your host. And today I'm very excited to welcome my new friend, Frank Weaver, to the podcast. Thank you for coming, Frank.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
So this is my first podcast being recorded virtually, and I wanted to ask where you're calling in from today.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I'm really happy to be here. And at the moment, I'm in my backyard in Orlando, Florida.
I think it's really unique how we met because this spring we are both participating in the New Voices Amplify program through Air Media, which is the Association of Independents in Radio. And we realized that we had all these sort of overlapping interests with being connected to our Indigenous roots and also having this love of the environment and the natural world. So it seemed like a natural way for us to connect and do a little swap with one another's efforts and our podcasting. So I would love to hear a little bit about what makes your heart beat, what brings you joy, what makes you tick.
Yeah, that's such a beautiful question. And right now, I can see the winds moving through the branches on the trees. And it's sunset. It's about to get dark. And for me, that's one of the favorite moments that I have in the day. It's right after the sunset, right before nightfall, when things are quiet down and the wind is moving through the trees. For me, it really connects me with my roots back in Paraguay. I grew up in Paraguay, in the border between Brazil. We had a farm there. We didn't have electricity. We didn't have running water. This is the days before the internet, but I just enjoy working on the fields, hard labor. When you finish the day and the sunset and you take a shower and you go outside and you sit in the porch, you're tired, but you're fulfilled. You're feeling like, wow, like today was a very productive day. And to me, that's what brings me joy, is that feeling of peace that you get after a lot of efforts that you put into something. And here in Orlando, I like going in my backyard around the same time and seeing those branches move through, the wind move to the branches, because it just connects me right back to me being young and being there in the farm.
What did you grow on your farm?
We had many things that we grew. When I was like really young, my grandfather, he started a farm and he would grow coffee. So it was a big coffee plantation. I think maybe 10 years before I was born, 15 years before I was born, there was a big frost that killed all the coffee in the area. So growing up, it was kind of like an old coffee farm. So we had the old machineries from the farm that grew coffee, and that was kind of like our toys, these rusted buildings that they have.
I always love hearing about what people want to grow when they have land, what they're cultivating and selling or sharing with your neighbors and so forth. There's that kinship that we can have with the land that feeds us. And so what a beautiful childhood it sounds like you had.
Yeah, for sure. If you ask me like what I wish I grew now, was probably Yerba Mate. Yerba Mate is a beautiful plant that is native to the Paraguay region. It's such a great plant because it has caffeine, but it doesn't have a crash. So it's like you're drinking green tea. And I'm very peculiar about the Yerba Mate because for us in Paraguay, we mostly drink cold. It's called tereré. That's the way that we like drinking. In Argentina, in Uruguay, in some parts of Brazil, they drink more of the mate. That is the hot version. So I know every time that people talk about Yerba Mate drink on a traditional way, they think about the mate, the hot one. But in Paraguay, it's pretty hot over there. So we like drinking cold, lots of ice. And we have this thing there called jujos. And jujos are medicinal plants that it grows. Most people grow a couple on their backyard, on their plants. So that way, when you make the tereré, it's a whole like ritual. So to begin, you have to do the tereré rupa. It means the bed of the tereré. And what that means is you have to eat some tasty empanadas before you drink the tea, because you want to make the bed so that way when the yerba mate comes in your stomach, you can lay down and just relax. We have some empanadas, and then we prepare the tereré, and my mom is like fiending for it. I wish I have it on my side right now. So we prepare it, and most people, depends on how their day is going, they might have a stomach ache or they might have a headache. So they know exactly what plants they need to add to the tereré, and they go and they find in their backyard. But if you don't have it in your house, you can go to a corner, and there's a street person that is selling those herbs. Like it would be like a food truck here in the United States, but over there we have like people that, on the corner that sells the medicinal plants. Depends on what kind of plants that you need. You smash it first, you put it in the water, and you drink it. And it's a whole ritual because you drink it with people. You don't drink it usually by yourself. And you pass it around clockwise. You always use your right hand when you give it to someone. And usually the guest is the person that serves, or the youngest person in the group, either one. And it's really popular in Paraguay. You can see, if you're looking at the news and the president is like doing a speech, he might be drinking tereré at the same time. So it's very a way to bond with people. Like sometimes if you want to have a hard conversation with somebody, you're like, hey, let's go drink some tereré. And it's a way to put your barriers down and just be yourself and enjoy tea. And it's a beautiful experience.
I love that. Here in Hawaii, we have ava, and other people call it kava, but there's a similar sort of relaxation, ceremonial essence around sharing ava together. So it sounds like there's threads of similarities.
Yeah, I heard that, not the ava, but a kava here in the United States. I haven't knew what it was, but I'm definitely going to look into it now.
Yeah, well, when you visit Hawaii and we finally get to meet in person, we can go share some ava together.
That'll be awesome. I'll bring my tereré too.
Perfect. Yeah. So I wanted to ask you, now that you live in Florida, how do you maintain that identity to your roots? Because I know you run a really awesome podcast called Indigenous Earth Community, and I feel like maybe that's connected to your holding on to that identity, but I wanted to ask you directly.
Yeah, for sure. I was born in Paraguay. My mom is Brazilian, and I do have native heritage through my mom. But the way that I was just raised normal Paraguayan. My family had one of the first nonprofits for the environmental causes in Paraguay. And they led to have a really close relationship with the indigenous people that live in the area, the Guaraní people. And a medicinal man called Don Galeano and his family. And it was a really cool relationship we had. You know, I would go and stay with them, or they would come and stay on our farm. And throughout time, you know, there's a big ritual that men would do on that tribe, is they would do a lip piercing when they come to age. So to me, it was an honor when I became of age for Don Galeano to ask me to participate on that ritual and be officially part of the tribe. So it was a very painful experience. They told me that it was not going to be painful, but it was very painful. What they do is they get like a thorn from a palm tree, and they sit you down and you drink chicha. Chicha is like a fermented corn drink to numb. But when I got there, I got there late because we had to hike to the area. So we arrived a couple hours late, and I was like, where's the chicha? And it's like, oh, we drink all the chicha. So there was no more chicha for me to drink. When the ritual happened, it was very painful. But it was an honor to have that experience and to officially be part of the tribe. And that was really close to my heart when I came to the United States, to be able to represent Paraguay in any way that I could. I did a video about water conservation, and it got a first prize with National Geographic. So I was very excited when they flew me to Washington to their headquarters to learn more about storytelling there. And while I was there, I went to the Smithsonian Native American Museum, and that was like such a cool experience to be able to go there. I think I was more excited to go there than I was to go to Disney when I went to the first time. But I kept walking around the hallways there and trying to look for things from Paraguay, and I didn't see anything from Paraguay. I decided to have something there from Paraguay. So I went back to the tribe, explained the situation, and we were able to create this altar made. This is like a sacred altar to donate to the Smithsonian. We did a lot of work. It was like about a 5-year process, and we were able to get that altar donated to the Smithsonian. And there was really cool experiences. So other museums are reaching out to me about pieces. We have donated some music and some objects to the music instrument in Arizona. By the way, one of the most amazing museums there is. And I'm not saying that because I'm biased, but what a cool museum. It's so interactive. I highly recommend that anybody, if they're in the area, to go visit the instrument museum. They have it break it down by different categories. There's stuff about hip hop, there's stuff about rock, blues, but there's also the countries and the continents. So if you go there in the Paraguay session, you can see some of the things we have. And it's been good to be able to promote Paraguay in that way. On my trips back, I would document a lot of the storytelling and come back and be able to put that information in a way that is equitable, but also free for people to research. I did a documentary about the culture, the rock art, the petroglyphs. And when you look up the indigenous people of the area, the Paita Utera, you'll see all the photos that we took and all the videos. So it's really cool to be able to give back in that way.
I'm learning so much about you. That's incredible that you've worked with the Smithsonian and that you were recognized by National Geographic. How did you even get into storytelling in the first place?
Yeah, it was my nickname when I was growing up. It was the storyteller. We didn't have much TV. I grew up in a military dictatorship. So in Paraguay, the media was heavily censored. So we didn't have much good entertainment. Like for kids, for example, we had some really old TV shows from like Italy or something like that. It was like really weird stuff. Topo Gigio, if you ever want to look into it. And then Fofão. If you want to have nightmares, please look up and you'll see what kind of children entertainment we had. They were horrible.
No, thank you.
Yeah. But so I just became telling stories. I just entertained my friends and my family. And I always like that, what if this and what if that, and be able to create stories and comic books. And just that kind of drew me into it.
It's just inherent in you, it sounds.
Yeah.
Wow. It's funny how through our cohort, we haven't had the opportunity yet to just really talk on this level, to get to know everybody else's personal stories about why they started their podcasts. Would you be able to share a bit about Indigenous Earth Community?
Yeah, for sure. And like you said, we're having such an incredible time with the cohort. With AIR is an amazing group of people, and I'm so humble and fortunate to be able to meet you and so many other cool people and learn their stories. So yeah, it's been great. So yeah, my podcast started in the pandemic. That I found that many people started podcasts in the pandemic. I think it was that time to introspect and think about and try to connect with people. And after moving to the United States, I met a lot of different people from different tribes, different original inhabitants groups. And I realized that there was a lot of values that were common, almost like you're mentioning the Ava drink. There's so many things that are kind of common. And one of the main things is the protection of the earth. So I was like, we really need to listen more to indigenous voices, especially now with the climate crisis and everything that is going around in the world. So I was like, let me go ahead and create a podcast to do that. And I'm happy to say that recently we had our 5-year anniversary, over 50 episodes, 163 countries, thousands of downloads. And I'm so happy with the reach that the podcast has. And I'm really happy to have anybody listen if they want to check it out, Indigenous Earth. But what I've been thinking lately is really about how are we able to protect that very important part of the indigenous experiences, that is the transmission of knowledge between elder and youth. That's such an important part. And just talking to a lot of my guests and people that come on the podcast, it's more and more having a challenge to be able to do that. That's why this year we launched it with the workshops. So we have 3 workshops that we have done across the globe. We have done one in Panama, Uganda, and the Philippines, and we have a couple countries coming in. And it's all about having an elder teach the youth about environment and about their indigenous culture. So I'm pretty excited about the new approach of the podcast that is turning to almost like a global phenomenon. I'm always looking for people that want to help to be able to sponsor. It's not, when you think about it, it's not a lot. Those workshops they take a day, and they about $150, and it's about 20 students that we can reach, and includes breakfast, includes lunch, and a little gift for the students to come back. And we're able to really impact the life of indigenous youth across the globe. And it's such a minuscule amount. $150 is not that much money for us, but across the globe, it can really make an impact in the life of so many people.
Do you have a story that you'd like to share about one of the students that has participated in a workshop? Any standout moments?
It's really cool to be able to see their happiness in participating in those activities. One thing is that when we create this curriculum, I don't want to come and say, hey, do this exactly like this way. I really want the people that I'm partnering up with, the community leaders, to build the curriculum. So be able to bring it to a sense that makes sense for them. So for example, in Uganda, they really talk about a food forest and how to grow food. In the Philippines, it was more about medicinal plants. And then in Panama, it was the connection with the river and the stories. So I think not necessarily one story, but just how each community brings the curriculum to life.
I think what you're doing is really honoring the place itself and the people who are from there by creating the space where those stories can be shared from the community itself, which I think is the best way to go about things, because you're really coming from a place of honoring them.
Yeah, this is something that we strive for, so we hopefully be able to do it, like you say. Thank you.
Yeah. I'm curious, what languages do you speak?
My first language is Portuguese. That's the language we speak at home. Then my mom is Brazilian, but we were born and raised in Paraguay. And in Paraguay, we speak Spanish. So Spanish is my second language. But Paraguay is one of the few countries in South America that a big part of the population speaks the indigenous language, that is Guaraní. I grew up on a farm, so most people on the farm, they would speak Guaraní. Or if you go to the city, informally, they would speak Guaraní. But I think it was in my 7th grade was when they made an official language to be taught at the schools. So that was interesting, that kind of reinforced the learning of Guaraní. And then, my grandmother is from the United States, so I would speak with my grandmother in English. A little bit, I didn't know that much, just basic stuff. And then my best friends growing up were French, so I spoke a little bit of French too with them. A little bit of 5 languages, I would say. Probably English, Portuguese, and Spanish are as the same level. Then my Guarani is so rusted because I don't use it at all anymore. So I can defend myself, but I need to go back to Duolingo to be able to take some classes. It's kind of interesting. They have Guarani in Duolingo, so it's neat. So sometimes I jump on it to refresh a little bit. And then my French is off. Maybe sometimes I watch a movie in French and I put it in your subtitles so I can get used to listening to it.
5 languages is pretty impressive. So my mind is blown right now.
Yeah, I wish I could take a lot of credit for it. But all of it I learned before I was like 6 or 7. So it's much easier when you're a kid to learn because it just comes so naturally to you. I wish I'd be like, it took me a long time to learn, but I was just a little kid just around those languages.
I feel like kids are sponges.
Yeah.
They can just soak it all in and then suddenly they can speak 3 languages, but it might take them a little bit longer to get to that point, but eventually they're fluent.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened to me. I was not able to speak until I was 3 years old, and my parents took me to the doctor trying to figure out why I wasn't verbal, why I wasn't speaking. And I think the doctor just heard everybody speaking a different language. And she's, what language do you speak to him? And my mom was like, in Portuguese. And then somebody was like, no, in Spanish, in Guaraní. And then the doctor's, okay, just speak to him in one language. So they just spoke to me in Portuguese. And then right after, like, I was fully verbal, speaking Portuguese, and then all the languages came up after. But like you say, we have that knowledge. We're soaking it in.
Very impressive. I wish I'm working on my second language, and I'm also trying to learn Hawaiian. But I know phrases and words, but you really have to commit or totally immerse yourself to like make that consistent progress, especially as an adult.
Yep.
I also wanted to ask you, I recall that you've mentioned that you also run a nonprofit. How did you launch all of that and connect it to your podcast at the same time? Because you've been doing this for many years at this point, and clearly it's something you love, and it's all connected to nature.
Yeah, it's a nonprofit. It's something that just started recently, and it's just a framework that I'm building to try to support the efforts that we're having, especially with the workshops. Because you're a podcaster yourself, there's a cost involved, there's hosting, there's softwares, there's time. There's a lot of costs involved in running a podcast, but when you start having the workshops, then it's a layered cost. So I'm just trying to build a framework to be able to support those workshops that I have. And it's really about environmental education at the end of the day, just how we're able to teach people to connect with nature and protect nature. And as much as I love the podcast medium, you still have to have a smartphone, you have to have an internet, and then you have to know the language that they're being spoken, English at this point. So the workshop is really going to those people that don't have those available to them, but it still need that environmental education and way to connect to the earth through that indigenous knowledge.
I think what you're bringing back is that sense of traditional oral storytelling, which is at the root of every culture and very much at the root of every indigenous culture. And I think that's such a beautiful thing that you're bringing it back to that core of what it means to share stories between elders and youth. In Hawaii, we say kupuna and keiki. Kupuna are the elders, keiki are the children. I'm just envisioning families sitting around a fire, sharing stories into the evening under the stars. And I feel like that has been how people have connected for thousands of years. And now that we're in the year 2025 and we do have all this technology, we can do podcasts and have it on the internet. But by you going and hosting those workshops in different places, you're really bringing it back to face-to-face connection, which is awesome. And I give you props for doing all of that work, because that's how we maintain that traditional ecological knowledge.
Exactly. And stories is how us humans, how we are able to learn. It's built on our DNA, like that's how we did it for 99.9999% of our time. We told stories, and that's how we got used to learn. I saw this joke on the internet that said, elephants are very smart. They have a specific sound to tell other elephants that there's bees nearby. And somebody was like, wow, that's amazing. Humans have also a sound that we do. And he goes, watch out, bees.
Run.
Yeah, run. We have sounds to make it to tell there's bees around, right? So yeah, the stories, that's what you remember, how you're going to learn. And bring it back to this workshop, I think, is vital, especially for people that need it the most.
I'm thinking about how when you're at like a conference or you're in a class, and like your professor or the speaker can go on and on about facts and numbers and data, and then they tell one story, and that's the only thing you remember from the whole day. And it's just how our brains work. We just want to hear the dilemma, and then what happens in between as they're reaching a resolution, and then to get some kind of satisfaction from the end of the story. And for some reason, that just sticks with us more effectively than anything else, than all these separate little ideas that aren't connected by storytelling. Is there anything else you'd like to share as we wrap up this really incredible interview? Frank, this has been so much fun. I feel like you have lots of thoughts, but yeah, anything you'd like to wrap up with?
Yeah, I want to thank you for having me, and it's an awesome discussion that we're having. And I read this science fiction book one time that it talked about this very advanced, technological advanced human race. And they realized that because they had all this advancement in the economy and robots and everything like that, but people were not happy still. And they couldn't figure out what it was. And they realized that the human body was the issue, because our human body is designed, and I can't remember exactly what the facts were, but let's say the human body was designed to move 20 miles a day to get this much rest, this much food, this much community, everything. So what they did was they realized that it was almost like a pre-industrial type of, or pre-agricultural type of living that humans needed to be happy. So that's what they did. They created a way that they buried their civilization, and they had the next generation be raised like primitive people without the knowledge of the thing, because then they realized that's what people needed to be happy. And of course, it's a science fiction story, but it really makes me think about the things that we just need as people. And I want to share something also that come from my heart, that I think it was around the time that the podcast, I got really sick. And I got bedridden for about 6 months, that I couldn't get up, and I was super tired and everything like that. It was really hard for me because my sense of self was around helping people, of doing certain activities, of being there for my community. And when I couldn't do that, then who am I? And it took me a while to be able to come to terms that existing and being is enough as a human being. And this is a long way to say that we have so much pressure to be able to do things and be productive. But at the end of the day, think about what the human body and our human existence is meant to be. It's meant to chill out, hang out, be in community, tell stories, drink the Ava drink some tereré, and relax. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Frank. I'm really glad that you are healthy again, and that you can contribute in the way that you feel is aligned with your sense of purpose. And I appreciate you so much for sharing all of this. And I'm so excited to continue listening to Indigenous Earth Community Podcast, and hopefully meet you in person at some point.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm happy that you brought me here and to have this conversation. And thank you so much for everybody listening. And I hope they have an amazing day too.
Mahalo, everyone, for tuning in, and we'll catch you on the next episode. Aloha.